I'm John Moscow.
And I'm Amy Halpern-Laff. Welcome to Ethical Schools. Our guest today is Jason Garcia. Jason is Assistant Vice President of Youth and Workforce Programs at SoBro, a multifaceted community development organization in the South Bronx. Jason designs and runs a range of out-of-school time programs for youth, including career exploration, leadership building, community service, and the arts. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you for having me.
Jason, our organization, Ethics and Education Network, has been providing training to SoBro staff on social emotional learning, SEL, and ethical decision making. There's been a lot of discussion in the workshops about the impact of adverse childhood experiences, or the ACEs, on young people and their actions. In the absence of sufficient mental health professionals in the schools and community, how can staff members best be supportive of youth who are experiencing the effects of trauma?
Just more so about listening to them, right? And being able to not so much understand a young person, but in a concept where being able to relate to them and letting them know that this is a part of life and that trauma is something that, we all go through as humans and as we get older. But it really speaks to the social emotional learning where this is a part of our emotional growth, but being able to socialize about it and really address whatever issues and trauma that you have on hand, and then identifying those issues and trauma and coming up with a solution. That's something that we focus on at our after school programs, because we deal with that on a day-to-day basis, especially working with our young people who are in our supportive housing facilities or are transitioning to supportive housing facilities, or are just in, who are adopted or in temporary housing. So that's just a monster in itself that they have to, just wake up and come to school not knowing or they're homeless, not knowing where the next meal is going to come from.
Can you talk some more about that? I mean, what does that look like in practice? What are some examples of how, in fact, staff can help when kids are in, tremendously stressful situations like that?
So one great way is what we've designed is a safe haven for all students and participants when they attend our programs, and we build that trust with them and that level of pretty much confidentiality where they can speak to us. And like I said, I'll reiterate that we build a safe haven so they can come and speak with us and let us know what they're going through, so that we can turn key and assist with these types of resources that the Department of Education cannot provide, whether it be a meal after school hours or clothing. So it's just more so about the students and really reaching out to us, and even the families, right? Letting us know what they're going through so that we can go on and identify resources we have internally here in the agency that can benefit them, whether it's affordable housing, whether it's through a food pantry or a clothing drive, or just being able to provide some sort of employment assistance for them to go on and really better themselves and better their life, so to speak.
Jason, what about kids who have experienced ACEs or adverse childhood experiences and who you see later on in middle school or high school, for example? I mean, these experiences have long-term impacts. How do you deal with that?
It goes back to just, like I said, listening to the young people and strategizing with them and identifying the resources we have internally. It's kind of hard to narrow it down where we say, we take this group of kids and we would place them in crises intervention, and we take this group of kids and we place them in LGBTQ awareness. So it's really a case-by-case basis where each of our group leaders and each of our staff members will have a specific caseload where they do an assessment, and we as leaders do assessments as well, not only on the students but of the families as well. So we take more of a holistic approach enough. We target the family so that we can figure out or try to identify the root of the problem, so we can go on and, like I said, identify those needs that the families are in need of, whether it's affordable housing, whether it's a meals program, clothing, helping with employment, helping with furthering education, whether it's through the high school equivalency or post-secondary education, right? So it's just a wide raft of resources that we try our absolute hardest to bring to the schools and bring to the families we service.
One of the things that I was really struck by in some of the workshops that we've been doing with the staff is that the staff members seemed very conscious in thinking about how they're supporting kids who've been through trauma. I was excited by the sense of people being very self-analytical of, okay, how does the way that I respond in a situation impact on the young person I'm working with, which is sort of like, I mean, we talk in Dewey in terms about figuring out what's ethical by looking at the impact on other people. And what I was hearing was that staff members were saying, okay, so a kid is acting out in the group, and my first reaction might be to sort of snap at them, get in line or act right or whatever. But then by thinking about consciously putting themselves in the situation of thinking about, okay, what might have been going on in his or her day that's making them act like this, that was shaping how they, as a staff person, were reacting. Have you seen this? I mean, I just saw this in the workshop situation, but have you seen this in practice? Have you seen staff members talk to you about that?
So that's it's funny that you bring that up, because that's something I implemented back in about 2009 at all of our school-based after-school programs, where it's not so much of how the child is acting at that moment, what is causing the child to behave in this manner, because we don't wake up angry, right? And even as adults, we deal with our own demons and we deal with our own issues. But again, it's most about understanding the child and finding out what is the core issue of this. And students feed off energy, kids feed off energy, adults feed off energy, right? So if we approach a situation aggressively, we're just going to get that behavior and those emotions reciprocated back to us. So it's most about letting the child vent, because clearly they are sending off a message, maybe a nonverbal message, just by acting in a certain manner to let us know, hey, I need help. So how do we figure out a way of how to identify that, and we try to find the root of the problem, because kids, if they're in the program, then because they want to be in the program. Our middle school and high school programs all are choice programs, so that they're not obligated to attend. So if they acting out in a program, that tells us, well, one, you wanted to come to the program, but two, you want us to identify, and you want us to recognize that you're having a hard time, and you want this one-on-one, and you want us to figure out what the issue is, or have a conversation with you to find out what the issue is, so that we can help you find a solution. So it's more so about, like I said, just feeding off energy and just giving off that energy to the young people. So it's a cognitive approach that we try to take, so that they understand, like, well, Mr. Jason is going to hear me out, and Mr. Jason he's going to be the first one to recognize that I'm having a hard day because I haven't eaten in 2 days, I haven't bathed in 2 days, or because in 9th grade reading at a 4th grade reading level, or I have no one at home because I live with a second generation relative, because my immediate family is overseas. And these are just all examples that I've dealt with and or we dealt with here in the agency, in the school. So it ranges, and it's traumatic, and it's sad, but we can't approach it in a sad and what's the word I'm looking for? In a sorrowful manner. It's just more so about in a positive and resourceful, and say, hey, we'll get through this together. And I think that's what we do best here, is we let the participants know that, when you're here, you're home and your family, and we'll take care of you.
Jason, not just kids, but many of your staff members have also experienced extensive trauma in their lives, and now may experience secondary trauma in their work. How do you support staff members in dealing with the effects of their own trauma and secondary trauma?
So one of our great partners are an agency called Ethics in Education Network. I'm not sure if you guys heard of them. You've done great work for us and really helping the staff. And so, and John, you and I spoke about this some time ago, that some staff may not know that they're going through trauma, or they may not realize that they're living a traumatic experience until they really take an out-of-body experience and say, wait a minute, this is not the norm for me, right? This is not why am I accepting being abused or being verbally abused at home, or living in certain conditions. So when they come to work, we build a relationship here, and we build a culture here in the agency that the staff, they don't only look at us as an employer, but they look at us as a resource, and as a wealth of knowledge, and a stepping stool to life, where they'll say, hey, can SoBro help me with affordable housing, or can SoBro help me find a second job at another program, or at another in another department that would help me financially. And one thing leads to another. So just even getting a job at a different department, well, of course, their income is increasing. They can afford the so-called affordable housing here that isn't so affordable, right? But again, it's about being a resource and being human. At the end of the day, it's really about being human and understanding the staff we have in investment. I have a huge investment in the staff, and we have a huge investment here in the staffing agency. So where it's, what do we give, what are we putting into the staff members, and what are we giving out, and how is it going to pay off in the long run, whether they remain with us or we just mold these individuals to become better professionals in the near future, and carry on and be leaders in their own agencies, or where they go off and really, take the things they learn here and enhance them, and continue to develop their acquired skills, and become better people, better parents, better citizens.
Wow, that was.
Sorry if I went off.
No. That was amazing. That was what I was going to say.
Thank you.
So, ethics is about relationships. What are the relationships like among the young people in the programs? And do you see changes in these relationships, over time? And how does the staff try to nurture these relationships, positive relationships?
The relationships are actually great at the programs, especially for our middle school programs, because we're able to pair individuals up with classmates or schoolmates that they may not be in the same class during the day. So they get to meet new people and really learn from one another, and really broaden their circle of network, right? If that makes sense. And not only by that, but just either whether it's through basketball, whether it's through art, through dance, through robotics, hydroponics, fashion, right? These are just a few programs that we have here to offer, but they attend these programs with other participants by choice, because we build the independence into the young people and decision making. So they all share that commonality of wanting to be in sports, or wanting to be in fashion, and wanting to be in hydroponics. So off the back, they have something to talk about. And again, they get to, they meet one another. So, and they build a relationship so that in the school day, they can say, hey, he goes, Jason goes to SoBro, and John goes to SoBro, and Amy goes to SoBro. So, we're talking in the lunchroom, or we're talking at breakfast, or we're even talking in the corner store, because we have we have that in common, and that relevant interest that we all have. And, for all we know, we all take the same bus together, or we live in the same neighborhood, and we didn't know it until we all went to SoBro and we walked in the same direction. But we encourage it, and we support it holistically, so that the students are learning from one another, and even learning different cultures, right? We have students from France, we have students from Africa, we have students from the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Iran, students from Brazil, students from, the list goes on and on, right? So, and we also implement cultural awareness and culture day, where students can bring it, coming in, just bringing a piece of their homeland, whether it's a recipe, whether it's a piece of art, so they can present and talk about it. And, that we tie that into relationship building and learning from one another.
At Ethical Schools, we talk a lot about educating young people, not just to live ethical lives themselves, but also to help develop a more ethical society and ethical institutions. Do students in your programs engage in advocacy and activism for social change?
Wow, it's funny that you bring that up, because this morning we were talking about our homelessness awareness here at one of our programs at Archimedes Academy, and Emolio Academy, that every year students, they volunteer at a soup kitchen or a homeless shelter to provide meals to those individuals who are either in supportive housing or who come in for meals. So they do a lot of advocacy around homelessness, veteran awareness, and that's over our PS3 site that they really they do clothing drives or can drives for veterans. Or the school, I know we partner with the school where they do a dollar for a vet. So in order for a participant to come school in jeans, they have to pay $1. That's all proceeds go to a veterans charity. So it's just, it ranges from, every year we do different awareness activities and projects where the students are learning about certain type of advocacy and content behind it.
That's wonderful. Is there any political or campaign involvement?
Right now, not yet. Students are aware of the political battles that's going on, and surprisingly, this year, I think a lot more students are in tune with the politics and the debates, and who's Joe Biden and who's Adam Chang, and who's Bernie Sanders, who's Kamala Harris, right? So it's to hear the young people say these names and really associate and correlate these individuals with their political beliefs and what they bring to the table. It's impressive. It's impressive to hear a 12-year-old to know who Joe Biden is. To hear a 14-year-old talking about Kamala Harris' belief, and to hear a 12-year-old say he's going to vote for Bernie Sanders, knowing, well, a 12-year-old can vote, right? But it's that they're having these type of conversations, and then they're in tune with this. So I think that's important. Whatever political belief we in or whatever red or blue party we want to side with, that's okay. But it's just more so about who do you feel is going to represent your country the best.
So I have a question about the follow-up on that, because obviously, as a nonprofit, you're nonpartisan and everything, but do you get a sense that those students who are eligible to vote are maybe more likely to vote than in the past, and students who aren't old enough to vote but who are saying, I'm going to vote for this one or that one, that they are channeling that at all into a sense of, okay, I can talk to my parents, or I can talk to friends, or I can do whatever? I mean, do you see it moving in any kind of very concrete, practical ways of having an effect?
Yes, with our youth build and our high school equivalency programs, students are more in tune about what would benefit them in the near future, whether it's through public assistance or whether it's through a post-secondary education, HSC. So what's tied around that, and what support that they'll receive in the near future. So I think it's good to see them having those conversations and really talking, the conversation surrounding those topics. It's like I said, it's impressive, and it's heartwarming to see our 12 and 13-year-olds have conversations like this, because that they're encouraging their parents to go in and vote for their political interest and who they want them to vote for as a 12-year-old, right? So when they say, oh, I'm going to vote for such and such, that's just them saying, I'm going to encourage my parent, I'm going to encourage my mom or my dad or my uncle or my caregiver to vote for this particular person.
Right. So many of your students are defining their sexuality or questioning their sexual identities. How does the program support them in this process when it's needed? Like, for example, if, say, families aren't supportive or whatever.
First and foremost, we support our students, again, by listening to them and just encouraging them to make the right decision. And again, they make a sound decision on how they choose to live their life. And we respect it wholeheartedly, but more so understand, so that they understand that, this is a part of their life and a decision that they made. One thing that we deal with commonly is parents that are not properly informed or not well versed with the decision that the young person made. So they'll be comfortable coming out to us and saying, I'm part of the LGBTQ community. However, when I go home, I have to carry on a certain way because my parents don't accept it. So we find ourselves in trying to educate parents on healthy relationships and understanding that, your child is your child, no matter what he or she chooses to be in life. And just the young person is going to be the young person. They're living their life. They can't live the life that you want them to live, right? And this is a decision that they made. And it's just more so about the young people understanding that it's a learning curve, not only for them, but for their parents, and really getting through it. So all the times we become a therapist, we become a social worker, right? We become a guidance counselor. We just have to wear different hats so that we're doing as much as we can, right, from this side of the house, if that makes sense.
A lot of times we're told that some Black and brown young people who focus on academic success get peer pressure, that they are quote unquote acting white. Is this an issue? And if so, how do you support these students?
So one thing and it's funny that you mentioned that, because it's, what does that mean, acting white? How do you act a color or an ethnicity, right? So what I tell the kids is, the moment you say that, you are putting yourself, you're already going against the grain, and you're putting yourself at a lower benchmark, because you feel just because you are a certain color or a certain ethnicity or culture that you are automatically educated. That's not always the case. So just by you saying I'm acting white, well, why do you feel like acting white means you're acting educated? Why can't you just say is you're just acting overly educated, right? So it's just teaching the students that there's no reason why you can't speak like that, or there's no reason why you shouldn't carry yourself in an educated manner, so that you're not looked upon as the stereotype, or you're not looked upon as just the poor ghetto Black or brown child. And just really, it's an uphill battle for our young kids in the Black and brown communities. But we've been blessed that we have individuals like ourselves to encourage and really guide the young people, our Black and brown young people, in the right direction, and provide as much guidance as we can. And kids feel because they're from a certain neighborhood, they have to carry that out. Speaking for myself, I was born in the South Bronx, where being educated, having a career, really, it goes against the grain. It goes against what we were supposed to do because we were from a certain neighborhood, and understanding that, well, I'm from this neighborhood, so I have to stay in this neighborhood. No, I want to better myself. And that's what I try to instill into the young people, that just because you're born here doesn't mean your entire life is these four walls or the concrete jungle, what they call the projects, right? You can better yourself, and you could go on to college and really meet other people of different ethnicities and different cultures. I encourage all our high school students to go on and go to different colleges, different states, so you can meet other people, and you can see what Louisiana is like. You can see what St. Louis is like. You can see what Florida is like. You can see what Washington is like. If you want to go to Idaho, right? You don't have to stay locked into New York City, or stay locked into just the four corners of the neighborhood you grew up in, because it's just a thing to do. So it's just more so educating the young people about, it's not acting white, it's being educated and being properly informed, that there's nothing wrong with that. You should be proud that, you have a vocabulary that's more than 20 words, right? So it's uphill battle, and it goes against the grain, because I'm from that neighborhood. I'm from that era. And just growing up poor, we had no choice but to go to school. And my mom worked two jobs. She worked at a Caldor department store, when it was many years ago, and she worked at a bus depot as well over in Hunts Point. So we had to fend for ourselves, and school was the way out, because that's where everything happened in school. That's what we learned. That's what we played. That's what we ate, and that's where we made our mistakes.
So speaking of success after graduation, whether academic or workforce or whatever, what are some of the ways that you are able to support students after they graduate from your program?
I think we do a great job with that, in terms of having an alumni network where students come back and they either work with us in summer youth, or they come and volunteer with us, or they just come back and visit just to say, hey, Mr. Jason, I'm in Delhi University, or I'm in Syracuse University. I'm moving to Florida because I got a 4-year scholarship. So it's just about staying in tune with them and providing, at least whether it's employment, an internship, or volunteer opportunity for them. I have one young person, Olodari, that I've been his mentor since he was in the 3rd grade. And he's over in college in Vermont. He plays basketball, and he comes every year. He comes around this time, around April. He'll be coming here soon. Say, Mr. Jason, I need a job. Oh, Mr. Jason, can I get $20? But He'll come every day to volunteer. He'll help out. He'll to do free tutoring with the kids. He'll do basketball training. And if I have a paid internship, he'll be more than happy to take it. And if I don't, he still comes back, So the love is there and the connection is there because we've built that bond. And again, like I mentioned earlier, we have a safe haven for them. So they know when they come back here, it's like coming back home. So it's just about outreach and retention and making sure we stay in tune and in touch with the young people. One thing also is important is good continuity and just the retention we have here of staff, that when they come back, they see the same staff, whether the staff is a group leader 3 years ago, now they're an assistant director, because we've invested in our staff members. And they come and say, oh, wow, you're a program director now. You used to be my basketball coach. Because when I started in SoBro 15 years ago, and a great friend of mine, Ava Lopez, she kind of brought me over 2005, if I'm not mistaken, or 2004. She brought me over as a basketball coach because she needed someone to coach basketball. And 15 years later, I'm the assistant vice president of youth and workforce programs.
So speaking of being the assistant vice president, when we were talking earlier today, you were just talking a little bit about what your day's been like today. And so I just have to ask you, because we're in the middle of the coronavirus, how do you deal with this? How are you dealing with it? What are some of the concrete things that you're able to do in terms, for example, of continuing the service to the kids who are, in the homeless program or the other kids? What kinds of things are you trying to figure out at this point?
I'm really figuring out, how do we support our families in need? How do we support our employees? And really, how do we continue to offer and the great services we've been offering from a limited standpoint? It's more so about strategic planning and really making the right decision. And it's hard to not answer a question or be that sense of comfort and heartwarming to our individuals when we don't know what's happening. And it's kind of sometimes, we're left in the dark and people usually come to us for answers. So when we don't have those answers, it's heartbreaking not to be able to see a smile on someone's face when they walk away, or that sense of relief and trust that they know that everything is going to be okay because SoBro's got my back, right? So we just continue to just, move like that and carry in that manner and really support not only us, our clients and the people we serve, but our employees. So that's something we're dealing with now, and we're still in decision-making stages and trying to figure out what are the next steps moving forward, and what's best for us, the agency, the community, and employees, and the clients, and the city overall.
Is there anything else you'd like to add that we haven't talked about?
No, not really. I mean, I think this was great. You guys are just a great partner to us, and we've done great work together. And you guys are amazing. Again, thank you so much for the trainings that you guys provided to us. Because earlier today, Sonia and some of the other staff members were saying, wow, this is some of the stuff that John was talking about, and that really ethics and education came in. We didn't know when we were going to need it, and we need it. Now is when we implement that training and execute the social emotional crisis and trauma that the students are going through. This is how we address those needs. So God works in mysterious ways. That I had that conversation this morning, and we're having this podcast now.
Well, thank you so much, Jason Garcia of SoBro.
No problem. You guys have a great night.
And thank you, listeners, for joining us. Check out our website for more episodes and articles. We've begun to post annotated transcripts of our interviews. We offer professional development on social emotional learning with a focus on ethics in the New York City area. Contact us at hosts@ethicalschools.org. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Ethical Schools. Our editor and social media manager is Amanda Denty. Until next week.